Hello, I'm Ben. Welcome to the channel. So today we're going to talk about thinking. And there's several books that go into thinking and give you some expansive knowledge on thinking. I'll start with this saying The Power of Positive Thinking is probably a book that everyone needs to read. That's by Norman Vincent Peale. It's a book that's been around for quite a while. As a Man Thinketh is another great book around thinking. And it will help you study and know a little bit more about what motivates you to think the way you do. There's one called The Whole Brain Business Book, which is an exceptional book to read. And you really don't have to read the whole book. You can get the gist out of a lot of the pictures and the graphics in the book. It talks about how your brain specifically works and allows you to kind of tune in based on the things you like and how you are. Tune in on the jobs and on opportunities that should fit for you based on how your brain works, just based on historical data and what people did with brains like yours, or brains depending on the quadrant. So the suggestion in the book is there are 4 different quadrants of the brain, and based on those quadrants and which one is dominant in your head, you'll like those things more. But that's not really what I wanted to get in the video today. This is just talking about control over thinking and the quality of thought. So we mentioned in another video about what you think. You can be more damaging in your head than anyone else can, and you can actually suffer many times over. I've in the Facebook group page for the Wisdom Hunters, you'll see there's multiple quotes in there from different people, Socrates and quite a few others, that talk about the deaths that we suffer in our minds are often, or many times worse than what we're going to go through in real life. And also, you suffer these deaths in your mind all the time. You can only die one time. So the idea, Marcus Aurelius said, live today as if you died yesterday, and the rest of this time is free. It's a do-over. They did that to change the way you're thinking, because if you think positively, you can most likely come to a positive outcome, and that's the purpose of the video. Ultimately, how you think things will go has an impact on how they go, okay? You want to think on things that add value to yourself and to others. You want to think on things that add value and strength to your day and give you additional power to get through things, and endurance. Endurance especially requires faith and positive thinking. Folks that are faithful and think positively last in things longer than others. COVID comes to mind for me. I was leading medical teams through COVID when that was happening. And the people that just fell apart, and then left things much more difficult for the ones of us that were behind, they did it because they lack faith and they lack positive thinking. The diminutive, minuscule, tiny things of the day took away from their power and their strength, and they didn't have that endurance to finish or push through like people who think positively. And all of the leaders that I have, and most of the leaders that I hire, one of the primary requirements that I have in that is that they be positive thinkers. That's the thing about consulting. If you're out there and you're in the business world and you're thinking about getting in consulting, just know that in consulting, a lot of times you deal with business owners, and many times those people may be very negative people. They may be people like you've never dealt with before, which is why I suggest consulting for everyone, because it's good for you to see how your practices impact people who think negatively. Because if you're a leader and you're in leadership just in large firms, typically folks don't make it to levels like an owner or CEO or COO or CFO or any of those executive members, or even general or regional or director type roles. You won't deal with a lot of negative people in large organizations like that, because their thinking would have limited them to being able to aspire or to achieve those positions. However, in the private world, where anyone can own a business and create things and create value and have something that can be sold, bought and sold, those folks might not be of the same mental complexity or diversity that other people are. Some of them are very much, and matter of fact, some of the smartest people I've ever met in my life ran small businesses that they started, right? So it's not to say, it's just to say that you will notice some differences in some of that. You want to recognize, first off, that there's many kinds of thinking, right? There's many types, but there's also many kinds of thinking. And typically there's books, and we've gone through many on each one of these topics. But there's books around each one. And the book that I'm using as a source today is John C. Maxwell's Make It Count. It's a great little book. I've used it as a source in another video today as well. But he talked about there's 11 different styles of thinking that he thinks come into play that impact people's lives. And the first one he says is big picture thinking, the ability to think beyond yourself and your world in order to process ideas with holistic perspective. And Donald Trump wrote a book called Thinking Big, and it is actually a very good book. Whether you like Trump or not, it shows how he just assumed he would be successful and jumped into things, and he's been successful his whole life because of that attitude. His thought was that whatever comes, we can handle it. And John C. Maxwell said in many of his books too, that you have strength in the things you're good at, but you hire for your weakness. So if there's spots that you know you're weak, you hire people that are strong in those areas to take care of those spots, and you don't have to worry about it. That's actually the way to think about building a proper team. You hire the right people, you shut up and get out of their way, right? You train them on what you want, you give them the expectations that are necessary, and then you get out of their way. That's the best way to do that. So number one is big picture thinking. Number two is focused thinking. That's the ability to think with clarity on issues by removing distractions and mental clutter from your mind. One of the things I say about multitasking, I don't ever have a positive response about multitasking. I think multitasking is a way to do many things poorly. Actually, I reached out to a vendor today to fix a problem. And in fixing that problem, I kept telling that I was losing their attention. And I was like, look, we're trying to handle an issue here for a customer. Why on earth do you keep going, well, I have to handle all these people? I was like, well, fine, jump off. I'll find somebody else. And so I hung up on that person and called back and had to deal with someone else to get through it. But that person was focused on me. They weren't multitasking. They weren't treating me poorly or everyone else poorly. And we actually got to take care of the issue for the customer. So focused thinking, it allows you to put your attention on one thing and one specific result that you're trying to get to, and to push those steps towards that one result. So that's focused thinking. Number three is creative thinking, the ability to break out of your box of limitations and explore ideas and options to experience a breakthrough. So creative thinking, it's more than thinking creatively, right? Creative thinking means you're trying to find a solution to something that's in front of you that you're working through, and you're just trying to work through those problems. It's like puzzle making or problem solving. That's what that is, creative thinking. It's to use what you know is known and try to detract or reduce what you don't know because of the assurity of what you do know. That is creative thinking, and it is very useful. The next is realistic thinking, the ability to build a solid foundation on facts to think with certainty. So let's talk about realistic thinking. One of the reasons a lot of people hire consultants like myself is for that realistic thinking. A lot of people that are creative minds that create their own businesses, they have this pie in the sky view of their business and of the world. The problem is those aren't the facts. So you have to kind of look at the facts. I've mentioned this book dozens of times, The E-Myth Revisited, when he's talking about the limitations to entrepreneurial business in this book. He's talking about the facts that people have a view of it, and even though that the business is performing in a different way or responding in a different way, the people are still seeing it as they saw it to begin with, right? So that's why that reality or that realism thought or realistic thinking matters, because sometimes it just is what it is. So either you have to pull away from or add to get around certain obstacles. It is what it is. That's why if you're in a leadership role, up high in a leadership role with direct reports that are over locations or direct reports that are over regions or districts or whatever it may be, you have to be realistic in what you're doing to set their goals and set the goals around their people and around their team. If you do not, you will lose good teammates because of environmental limitations. So I'll speak on that very briefly. But I've worked for companies before that had multi-million dollar P&Ls across multiple sites, etc. And you would have leadership, divisional or whatever, leadership that would choose the resources that were meant for this area and put them in this area, because in this area we keep making bad decisions and it keeps going wrong. So what these people do is they take resources from these other areas. So now these other areas don't have the same field to play on as this one area. So since they're doing so well, they now get punished and don't get what should be coming to them because of that. That's not realistic thinking. That is specifically I won't call it thinking at all. It's not strategic, but it's thinking in a way that doesn't actually resolve issues or keep people on an even playing field. So you have to be realistic when you're talking about business and you're talking about running teams. If you're not, you will cost yourself good teammates and good leaders if you don't pay attention to that. The next is strategic thinking. That's the fifth style of thinking. It's the ability to implement plans that give direction for today and increase your potential for tomorrow. But also strategic thinking has segments in it to where you look at what's happening, you rethink and redirect. So you correct within the process. So you're redirecting. So strategically, you're continuing to improve and expand. Strategy never stops. It's an ever-going, on-living thing. It should live forever. So that's what strategic thinking is. It has to be fluid. It has to be ambidextrous. It has to be fast and malleable. It has to be able to move through the situations to support what's necessary. 6 is possibility thinking. It's the ability to unleash your enthusiasm and hope to find solutions for everything, even including those that seem impossible. Possibility thinking means you look in what it is, you get one solid piece to grab a hold to, and you follow that piece until you start getting successes. And once you do that positive mindset, dominoes start to fall. So once you start pushing through a problem, you ultimately will solve the situation. You will get through it. You just have to keep moving through it. Possibility thinking, those people that are theoretical mathematicians, theoretical scientists, those folks are gifted at this, where they catch one piece of a formula or a query or a quandary or some type of statement that they can latch onto, and using rules that are established, circularly go around that until they find a hole. They'll move through and explain that through a statement or through a fraction or through a function. So possibility thinking is impressive. If you've ever been around people that think this way, I worked with some engineers one time that I swear these people were so much different from me. I could not see how their brains caught hold to things, but it was very inspiring to watch. And at that point, I mean, I knew I was different from them, but I didn't know I was that different. But like, it's two different species, the way they see a problem, go into it. And however, I, on the other hand, was gifted at other things and could fix the world where they would successfully live and thrive, but they needed me to set that up for them because they couldn't see it the way I did. So it was definitely a symbiotic type relationship that was supportive both ways, but it was impressive because I learned quite a bit about just the difference of way people think. And it wasn't because one was less or the other was more. It's just because they were completely different. I mean, cats and dogs. This is one thing and this is another. So kind of cool to learn that at some point. Hopefully you'll get to learn something like that at some point too, because it's kind of eye-opening and inspiring. That was number 6, possibility thinking. Number 7 is reflective thinking, the ability to revisit the past in order to gain a true perspective and think with understanding. Here's the thing about reflective thinking. It is extremely important. If you're in business or if you're trying to improve yourself, looking back and trying to learn from mistakes and looking back and learning from results. It might not even be mistakes. It may be that the bar is set here and you want to set it much, much higher. You have to look back and be able to be objective in that. Taking notes and having a journal is a great way to do that. Whenever I start consulting with a new business, I ask them to keep a journal for the first 3 months. And then we review those journal notes at the end of that first 3 months. Because then you can see already the difference that has been made in that short period of time. They may not tell you as the consultant that, this, and this is an issue for them and they didn't like that. But if they put it in the journal, then you can circle back and they can see, oh, this is why you did that. Yeah, that's why we did this. So reflective thinking is useful. Journaling, it works very well with that too. If you really want to police yourself and hold yourself to a higher margin to get to a better standard, that reflective thinking is a great way to do it. Number 8 is questioning popular thinking. The ability to reject the limitations of common thinking and accomplish uncommon results. It's like Israel's 13th man. Basically, if everybody agrees on something, you get one to take the opposite thought process. That way you can dominate any situation because you've thought about both sides of the coin. I mentioned earlier in videos about previously in my career, there was a guy who he and I were friends, even though we didn't get along at all. If I said it was this way, he said it was that way. But anytime I was going to be going into a difficult negotiation at that company, I took him. And people said, what are you doing? You're glutton for punishment. You'll get this so much easier. There was a fuller view of what was going on in the room when both of us were in it. So it was a very great relationship, went well. We're still friends to this day. But I understood at that time I was better at a table with him at the table with me because he's thinking the opposite that I am. So when we left the table and went in another room to discuss what we're thinking, the stuff I've not even thought about, he's laying on the table, and the stuff that he hasn't thought about, I'm laying on the table. And we came back with a better result and a better performance for our company and for the company we represented, the customers represented. So that's questioning popular thinking. What's popular in your head might not be popular in someone else's. So it does come up to accomplish uncommon results. The next is shared thinking. That's number 9, the ability to include the heads of others to help you think over your head and achieve compounding results. I'll tell you, the strongest thing in the world is a team that's completely diverse. Some people will be very similar, but across that team, everyone thinks slightly differently. It's just like what I was saying in that previous example. If you have 10 and 12 people that think differently, think how much more powerful you are in those situations than you would be with just 2 people that think differently. So shared thinking is one way. As long as everybody has, the psychological safety to prepare and to perform and participate equally, that can be a very strong, very unifying task, that shared thinking. The next is unselfish thinking, the ability to consider others and their journey and to think about collaboration around that. He calls it unselfish thinking. I just think that's true thinking. You want to put yourself in their shoes. That's motivational. That helps you get on the same page with someone. And then the 11th and final is bottom line thinking, the ability to focus on results and maximize return to reap the full potential of your thinking. You have to constantly be able to look at what the results are, not your opinions or your feelings or all that about the results, just the actual results. And in doing that, some things will come to light about what needs to be repaired, what needs to be replaced, or what needs to be moved away. 70-20-10 and those type things actually stand out very strongly when you're looking at things that are factual and true results. So hopefully this was useful to you. If you like content like this, please subscribe. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it to those that you think might be interested. I'm Ben. Be good.